Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Alfred Hitchcock's The Trouble with Harry in 1955. Here is the set, once again going through this, and yes, here it is, just there, The Trouble with Harry. Now this is a film that, yeah, I've seen it once before. I saw it last year, so it's one of the later Hitchcocks, that I saw. I saw a lot of them in 2017, 2016, when I started going, through quite a lot of his films, acquiring quite a lot of the Blu-rays. I'd seen, of course, roughly 3 Hitchcocks as a kid, but yeah, really exploring this guy's work. I'm still not even halfway actually, but of course, really will be checking out pretty much all of his films that are available in the next year. Really, this year I'll try and do all of them, review this on this channel. And yes, there's some like Psycho that I've not reviewed yet. I've seen that, of course, multiple times. This one from this set, of course, very, very controversial. Some say it's the one that nearly, quote, killed Hitchcock's career, although I found that very hard to believe. But yes, this one was not well received. Many people hated this film on its release. And yeah, this is in the 50s, so Hitchcock's best career, decade career, basically. It really was, for me anyway, easily his best decade, and just pumping out great, great films, and just some of the very best films ever made. Vertigo, Rear Window, and just some other really underrated films. This one is very, very underrated for me, and just, I didn't expect much from this. Even, IMDb and stuff, 7.1, which is pretty low for Hitchcock. A lot of them have more than that, and yeah, just many people saying this is one of his worst films. If you look on rankings, this will be right near the bottom most of the time, or it could be somewhere in the middle. There is a strong case from some cults out there that this is one of his best and very underappreciated. I believe it to be underrated. I don't think it's one of his 10 best films that I've seen even, but for me, no doubt, a masterpiece. Yes, I do think it's a masterpiece. It is a lost classic, definitely, for me, and of course getting a bit more kind of attention now in the last sort of few years or so, and that stuff is now it's on this set and everything. It's obviously bringing out more people to kind of go back and watch this film and actually see it is a great film, at least in my opinion. So yes, very, very bizarre film, actually, though. I think no doubt this is pretty insane actually. This film, it's a black comedy. Of course, The Trouble with Harry. Now Harry is the man that is dead throughout this film. He is basically the MacGuffin of the film, but yes, his body is found at the beginning of the film, and you've got this wonderful opening kind of title sequence, and then of course beautiful scenery that's shown. It's kind of autumn. This isn't the set, and it's just a wonderful location in the countryside. It's beautiful to look at. I was stunned by the the visuals throughout this film, and yes, the little kid Arnie, who is basically the son of Jennifer, played by Shirley Maclaine. This is her first role in a film, her feature film debut, which is really interesting to see. 5 years before The Apartment, of course, and yeah, this film introduces her, and she plays one of the main characters, Jennifer. There is an artist, a local artist called Sam. He's played by Forsythe. They kind of form a romance in the film, and then of course you've got Albert, who is this kind of like retired seaman who kind of goes out hunting near the beginning of the film, and he thinks that he has actually shot Harry. And yes, this body is seen, and many of the people that I've mentioned, the characters, including another elderly woman as well, basically they find this it's kind of a mystery film. But here's the thing, it's not really, they're not worried about this body. The fact is, this is used as kind of a comedy device. This film is not taken seriously, in many regards. It's a black comedy, and actually Harry itself, is someone who is kind of basically, mocked in a way. No one actually cares too much about his death, and they do try and cover things up, but not for the fact that any sincere way. It's kind of, it is very, very, very joked at. The fact that he's dead and stuff. Not entirely in that kind of way, but yes, basically, not for one point in the film is anyone really sad about this. So yeah, very, very bizarre film on paper, the way I'm describing it. But yeah, you have to see it to kind of see, actually how this is not really, kind of just laughing at death and stuff. This is very, very different, very, very unique. This review will really not do it justice at all, because this film really is very, very hard to review, because it does sound like a piss about, really. Let's put it bluntly, but really this film is actually very, very thoughtful. It's a wonderful film. 2 different romances really throughout the film, you know, kind of, you know, at the same time develop. And yes, it's just a very, very peaceful film, wonderful sense of community. I love this film from start to finish. And yes, this Harry character who has died, you do learn more and more about him over the course of the film. There is mystery and it does unravel, not in a particular kind of Hitchcock way, but really he's a MacGuffin, this character, and it just kind of, it brings out the kind of the humanity and all these relationships with the other characters, as opposed to actually really, you know, the character of Harry being the central kind of point of the film. It's not really, you know, saying much. His character is just kind of a device to bring out all these different emotions and stuff, and people trying to cover something up, but you know, it's very, very different. This film, from start to finish, for me, is a masterpiece, really. I don't really have any flaws with it. Yes, not everyone will like this. Not everyone will find it, you know, that it's got the best of interests. I personally don't think it's offensive. You know, but some people, of course, will. You know, and the fact that, you know, no one is actually caring too much about this character that's died and stuff, and you know, the fact that they're joking about him, you know, and everything, and it's not taken seriously. His death, you know, people rub some people the wrong way, you know, let's face it. But yes, for me, it does not offend. I didn't take it, you know, the wrong way, and I think, yeah, I really understood what Hitchcock was doing here. And yes, you know, you've got these characters. Shirley Maclaine is absolutely wonderful in the film. She's a great actress, of course. The Apartment, absolutely amazing in that film. And yes, here she's great. Really, really kind of just, you know, charming performances. This is the thing. This film has charming characters. There's a real unique sense of warmth in this film. And of course, yes, Shirley Maclaine is just brilliant here. Of course, John Forsythe is great. When he's together with Albert, you know, that really is, it's really, really charming stuff there. I just think the way this film is written is just wonderful. You know, as I say, could have come across bad in the way that, of course, this is you know, approached, but it didn't. You know, the way it comes across on the screen, yes, it just doesn't really ever, you know, kind of veer off into territory that it could easily have done. But you know, luckily, you've got this kind of this charm to it. You know, you've got this very, very human touch Hitchcock brings. And yes, you know, it's overall probably, you could say, along with To Catch a Thief, his lightest film. You know, this doesn't really got too much drama in the film. You know, what you could call drama in the film is definitely melodrama, which of course, when done well, I love, and it has got some tension, really in the final act, mainly actually, or you know, when the kind of the policeman crops up here and there early on in the film, but really the tension in the film is mostly in the final act, which is really, really bizarre for a Hitchcock film. This is definitely, it seems to be, you know, within his career, very experimental, you know, certainly in that sense. The structure of the film, the actual tone of the film is very, very different to any film really that I've seen, of course, and it just, for me, it just comes across, you know, like it was very experimental in the early stages, but for me, it's executed perfectly. I think it really is something, you know, very, very unique, and just, I think I love the lightness of this film. You know, I could just watch this forever, really. It's just one of them films that it's so easy to watch. It's so, you know, kind of nice and light, but you know, you do care. I did care about the characters completely. I got completely invested. All these characters, you know, Jennifer, Sam, you know, Albert, all of these characters are just so good. They're so kind of enjoyable characters you root for, and just, you know, together the relationships develop throughout the film are so invested. You know, that's where it gets of course, gets into the characters. You know, it's not really about the plot at all. As I say, the only plot, you know, thing, it really is a device, the MacGuffin, which is Harry. And of course, you've got moments where, you know, they're trying to bury the body and stuff and find out different clues. You know, but really, it isn't the central, you know, kind of focus of the film. It's more about these characters, you know, these romances, and actually has a lot to do with, you know, kind of age and stuff. You know, how people growing old and the peace in that. You know, I really find, you know, it was very, very a lovely film in that sense. I love the romances of the two of them. Very, very different, but again, you know, both very, very warm. I love the whole kind of the central relationships. As I say, you know, it's the way they kind of together, all these four, you know, these four characters. It's just so enjoyable to watch, and of course, Arnie as well. You know, the little kid. It's very, very charming stuff, of course, and just hilarious at times. You know, this is definitely a successful comedy. You know, it's very, very, it's got a dark edge. You know, in a very, very light way and approach, but yes, it's definitely really, really funny, of course, at times when it needs to be. But yeah, it's just a very, very relaxed, you could say, laid back film, which does not mean it's not something that I cared about at all, because I absolutely loved the film. I got invested from start to finish, but it's very, very light. As I say, it's probably his lightest film that I've seen, Hitchcock. And it's very, very. He's known for his very, very intense films at times, or ones that you're constantly kind of, on the edge of your seat, like Rear Window, Rope, Psycho, Vertigo as well. Very, very different, but yes, of course, constantly involving in the plot and all this kind of stuff. But this one is very, very different. You can compare it to Catch a Thief, very, very kind of relaxed and light. But this one even more so. I really think it's just very, very risky, but he pulled it off perfectly for me. And I think this is a film that actually just explores many, many different themes, and it does it wonderfully. Using this dead body as a device. You could say actually that this film is kind of a parody of Hitchcock films in many regards. Not one that kind of diminishes his kind of reputation at all. It's just a parody. I think it could be considered a parody of his work. The way he mocks this and just kind of brushes over this body. Whereas most of his films, the characters are kind of, if they're on the run or there's a murder involved, it's very, very intense. And they're of course constantly kind of trying to get away from the police or something. And it's just in this film, it's never taken seriously at all by the main characters. So it could be considered that. Very, very bizarre, this film, as I say. You just have to watch it and find out. Many people will find kind of peaceful moments in this film. I certainly did. I found great comfort in the film, actually. And even though it's kind of based around this dead body, it's nothing like other Hitchcock films or any films like this. As I say, completely unique. The way the cinematography, of course, plays into this film. Wonderful cinematography. The visuals throughout are absolutely stunning. It's wonderful locations, but just the way it's captured is really, really beautiful. The score, of course, wonderful score here. Very, very nostalgic and kind of peaceful and just very, very nice, of course. And yes, the script is just amazing. Very, very risky, of course. The editing, everything in this film is just really masterful, I feel, and just the warmth, the charm, the kind of very, very bizarre nature. Of course, the tone in the film, it's very bizarre, but it's so consistent, and it never breaks tone. In that sense, it never took me out of the experience, where it could have done easily in another director's hands. This could have been a throwaway film. Many people have said it is a throwaway film, but for me, it's not. And actually, I do think it's an underrated masterpiece, because I just think everything in the film really is flawless. I absolutely love this film. I think there's so much great characters in the film. Very, very small scale, of course. Mostly around this one location, this small town, and stuff. And very, very little tension in the film, as you would associate with Hitchcock, of course. This one is very, very light and laid back. It seems like it's a film Hitchcock made with ease, and that is a sign of a great film, actually. Not the fact that I couldn't take it seriously. The fact that it did feel like it was, it seemed like he was just very, very relaxed when making it. And of course, it probably might not have been the case, but it really did feel just very, very relaxed throughout, and just very, very quiet and tranquil, and very, at times it's very spiritual. I did love this film, of course. And yes, it gets full marks, 100%. Yes, an absolute masterpiece. Doesn't quite get into the plus tiers. A lot of the Hitchcocks that I've reviewed have. I don't think this is one of his best films that I've seen. But again, really all the films that I've seen from him so far, at least 15, are masterpieces. So yeah, it's no small kind of feat. This is a stunning film. But the fact it's not in his top 10 really says everything about the director, of course. Even when he was making these light films, kind of ones that weren't meant to be taken fully seriously, black comedies like this, still amazing. Still an absolute master of the visuals here, of course. Just the way this film flows, the kind of the plot points, but mainly the characters, the way they kind of develop across the film is really stunning. It's got a wonderful score, and just a wonderful atmosphere to this film. I love the sense of community in the film. I love the romances. It's just the way that he explores, these romances, are just really, really masterful, and so warm, heartwarming, of course. You know, some people have said that this is kind of a cold film and one that, you know, is really not nice. I disagree completely. I think the complete opposite, actually. And just, yeah, I think mainly the character of Harry is not meant to be mocking, you know, death and stuff in general. It's kind of a MacGuffin, and again, you could say kind of a different take on his actual career. You could say in some ways a self-parody film. You know, not in the sense that he's saying that his films, you know, weren't meant to be taken seriously. Just yeah, just kind of stepping back and maybe, you know, taking a light approach to this and kind of commenting on it in a way that is just, you know, kind of fun and light-hearted and not meant to be offensive at all. I think this film, yes, it's controversial, but I'm on the positive side. Absolutely, I think, you know, definitely among the top 100 most underrated films that I've ever seen. You know, and I think actually there's a couple more Hitchcocks that are like this. The Man Who Knew Too Much, the remake, very, very underrated. This one, certainly an underrated film. I think it's a masterpiece. The way it's shot, the editing, the acting, very, very hard to pull off. But all the performances, Shirley Maclaine, John Forsythe, they're just so pitch perfect. There's not a single moment that breaks tone, and just I really just got everything that Hitchcock was trying to say here. And of course, the central plot is not really taken as seriously at all. You know, you could say that pretty much all these films, you know, the characters are much more important than the plot. He's one of the directors, of course, but even more so here. The plot is really pushed to the back, and it's kind of just used as a device. This character of Harry, it's not, you know, kind of a whodunit in that sense. You know, you do, of course, wonder who struck the final blow in that sense for quite a while, but, you know, it's not really the main focus. You're not really meant to be fully, you know, kind of on this and kind of trying to who's done this and stuff. It's more about that kind of uses device as a MacGuffin, and of course just the overall kind of the tone of the film is not meant to be, you know, taken seriously too much. This kind of you know, this murder, and yes, you know, I think this film, the way it unfolds, the characters, the arcs of them, you know, and I think just the charm of it, you know, easily a masterpiece for me. And it's you know, it's just a masterful film in the way it's made, and just of course the way it's shot, the music, and yes, you know, a lovely ending as well. So yes, this film, you know, is just definitely on my favourite films list. Highly recommend it, of course. Very, very bizarre film. When I first saw it, you know, I thought, wow, that was risky, but, you know, there was no doubt that this is a great film. I thought, you know, I was just loving it from the start. And yes, you know, a risky film from Hitchcock, but a great one, and a masterpiece from me. Of course, it's not meant to be offensive, and for me, personally, it wasn't. And I think just a great thriller, a great comedy, of course, black comedy, and wonderful romance, you know, that I just got fully invested in and loved from start to finish once again. So yes, of course, thanks for watching my review.